This week, I talked to the author of How Hard Can It Be? Startup Lessons from Trying and Failing to Take Down Facebook. I read this book. Actually, no, I didn't read this book. I binge read this book. It was entertaining. It was business lessons. As an entrepreneur, you will see yourself through this book and so many things to learn from this author's journey. Well, I won't talk about it anymore. Jump into the conversation and have a listen for yourself. Welcome to Reinventing Perspectives. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Arnaud Henneville-Wedholm. Well, I am so excited to have you here, especially after reading your book. This book is amazing. Early entrepreneurs, you need to get this book. It's called How Hard Can It Be? Startup Lessons from Trying and Failing to Take Down Facebook. Please, Arnaud, let us know who you are and what you're about.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, for having me on. I'm really excited and looking forward to this conversation. So as you mentioned, I've just written a book, went live October 2021. It's a startup book because, I'm an entrepreneur to start with. And so having done myself the entrepreneurial journey and having come out of it in a way that I would say 9 startup out of 10 do come out of it, which is not so successful, I felt that I needed to tell that story, that story of the real entrepreneurial journey. I mean, what is it like to run a startup and try to monetize a startup and do all the things that tech entrepreneur wants to achieve? And how does it feel really and what you get out of it? That's the purpose of the book. And I hope it will help a lot of people on their own journey.
Yeah, phenomenal. I'm going to quote your book here quite a bit in this interview. So bear with me for you. To the audience, I'm just giving you snippets of this amazing book. Well, part of the reason that you feel that entrepreneurs should share their insights and hard-earned wisdom is that, and I quote, it dramatically increases the odds that the newest in our rank become more than roadkill on the highway of innovation and progress. More than roadkill on the highway of innovation and progress. That got me right there. It sucked me right in. From reading this book, this is not your first startup. I'll let you talk a little bit about your startup that you mentioned in the book in Thailand. And if you can take us from the point of having this idea to take Facebook down, and then to the point where you begin to make traction and you're surprised by how quick and speedy the traction is. If you can just tell us about that. We'll start there.
Yeah, let's start there. That would be a good intro. There are 2 ways of doing it, I guess. Now, having done it, I would favor one specific way. In our case, we're looking for that best idea because we wanted an idea that would scale, my co-founder and I. And so we came with a lot of ideas on, what could we do? What did we have the capacity and the capabilities to do? What could we have the money to do? Where was the intersection between our skill set and the likelihood of us, being able to do anything? And I guess some passion baked into that, what were we passionate about in that very moment? So we were management consultants. So we had a large array of, a big spectrum of things we could do. I mean, we were, so to say, generalists. So we knew about a lot of many things, but nothing specific, but a lot of things that we know about. So in a way, it was a good thing. Our core as a consultant, what we were working with prior to launching our startup was behavioral change. And as I explained in the book, we were working with helping large organizations to cascade change initiatives. So typically it has to do with either upscaling people, helping them develop the skills that they need, employees need in order to make that new strategy happen in a larger organizational context, or rather helping both leaders and organizations develop the behaviors that they need to have in order to cascade those initiatives. And now it sounds very fluffy and random, but initiatives could be anything from, very technical initiatives such as sales initiatives, but also if you work with HR, it would have to do with the understanding of corporate values, for example. Anyway, long story short, we're working with change as a main topic. And as we were doing that, this is 2012. Facebook is starting to grow. 800,000 people or so are using Facebook at this stage. And there is a lot of research that is emerging about the side effects, the negative side effects of using Facebook. So there is the fact that, well, it may not be as, healthy as we thought it was. There is this one aspect. And then there's obviously the aspect that every one of us would notice, which is a lot of content is being created, which is not necessarily something I would say is very engaging, such as, random pictures of the food that you've had last week or the party you are going to next week. To us, it felt very odd that suddenly almost 1 billion people could spend hours and hours on that kind of content, and it was disturbing. So we took it on ourselves to create a platform that would be more engaging, and we wanted to attach a real meaning to the word engagement. And for us, it meant instead of a person liking content from their sofa, we would invite them to actually create content that one can indeed engage with. And that would mean, create something in the real world as opposed to just sitting down and liking pictures. So that was the initial idea and how we got started.
Oh, and you had no idea what Facebook was going to do, did you? I said, now look at the metaverse.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah.
It was a novel idea. And I definitely could see a lot of people who, even up to date, a lot of people who are anti-Facebook are anti-Facebook for that reason. And I think the research has become more than overwhelming.
True.
Absolutely.
That was almost like 10 years ago now. Looking back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You and your partner, Magnus, the way you describe him in the book, it's almost like you are complete opposites, really, and an unlikely pair to be business partners in every sense, because you describe him almost to have a personality that's contrary to yours. You describe him even to having perspectives that are contrary to yours, which brings me to something that a lot of our early entrepreneur audience is probably interested in. Like, what makes for a great business partner, and what makes for a great startup team from your experience?
Right. Yeah, I think you captured it right there in the one sentence. It's easier to attract people that are similar to you, which in fact is the total opposite you should do, right? You should try to get in business with people. So first, not friends. Second, people that complement you. So your co-founder and the initial team should definitely be what you're not, because otherwise you'll have duplication of skills and competencies, and that will not be a great team. As every business person really knows and should understand if they don't, is that what you want to have is really a strong team of personalities that complement one another and that can look at the same thing but from a different perspective and have discussion that are really strong and everyone can argument their positions. We don't have to be in agreement. We just have to come out of those discussions with really something that is greater than when we came into whatever discussion that we will take as a new founded team.
So in the case where you were equal partners, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
On issues where you really totally disagreed on something, how would you move forward in that case?
Well, making compromises, right? Because we are equal partners and smart enough to understand that can't always win, right? You have to, it's like give and take. Some stuff you let go, and others you really believe that your way is the better way. And if you can argue for it, then, it's like argumenting and debating and convincing the other part that indeed you make a greater point. And it's a bad idea it's certainly a bad idea to always agree. You should disagree. I mean, Magnus and I disagreed a lot as you went through the book yourself, And in the end, it made us for a really strong team. We could have those really heated arguments and discussions, but the result would always be that we move the thinking forward. We advance the company, really. stronger arguments wins.
If you can talk a little bit about your journey into getting into an accelerator program, and also if you feel that that was really a necessary component of your journey, because there may be entrepreneurs that are listening and thinking, should I make getting into an accelerator program a priority? Or maybe should I go to a business school, or should I try and figure it out on my own? So if you can just speak to that as well.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not a requirement. Obviously, a lot of great companies made it without. So certainly not a requirement. But in our case, so I have to take a few steps back. We, as I said, we were consultants. We were, tech entrepreneurs. I mean, we had nothing of the tech background. We couldn't code. We couldn't, write codes or whatnot. And so we're a bit at odds with the vision that we had, the purpose we had created ourselves, which was to displace Facebook, sounded a bit conflicting to our background. So in order to sort of, how should I say, to feel better about ourselves and our vision, we felt that, entering an incubator could not only help us in those early days and perhaps bring us the competencies. I mean, first, the understanding that we didn't have. And second, we thought that it was just the two of us initially, that through networking, because those places are really meant for networking, exchanging of ideas, meeting new people, potentially angel investors, like the first layer of people that would invest in such a high risk company. We thought it would be a fantastic opportunity for us to, try to connect the dots there. It was hard to get in. Actually, as I describe in the book, we got rejected the first time we pitched, because just like anything that is competitive, it's not that the door is open and you can, show up and money will be thrown onto you. It's really about competing, right? It's, again, it's all about the best wins. So we did pitch and we did get rejected for the reason I mentioned, that we were not tech enough based on what we wanted to do and what we had, which was nothing then. And so we had to go back to our chamber, so to say, and really work hard in the background to find what we didn't have, which was further team members, which would actually complement the team the best way versus what we wanted to achieve. And most importantly, the so-called MVP, minimal viable product, that we had to have something launched already. In our dream world of management consultants, we thought that just a PowerPoint, a nice story would, and our background and experience would be enough to get in. That was really naive of us, because what those people judge you on is actual traction, like the beginning, the early signs of something that is worth looking at. And so in order to do that, you have to build something initially and prove that, yes, we have something here, please consider. So after a year of hard work and managing to get through that first hurdle, we got accepted because we had those initial signs of traction. It looked much better than a year prior.
I love when you share the process of doing that, because to a lot of entrepreneurs, it's almost like a world in itself. Let me take you to the day that you're about to launch. We're about to go live, and you go to bed the next day and you're surprised by how much traction you're getting on this. That was very interesting for me, because why do you think that you got so much traction in the beginning, where a lot of tech startups fail to get that traction in the beginning?
It was a novel idea. So we had done a lot of marketing, homemade marketing. We blasted content everywhere, notably on Facebook, Twitter and everything. We did position, or we tried at least, to position us as something that was worth looking at, something exciting. We did manage to create that spark of interest initially. Our target market was, as I say in the book, the world, but not really. I mean, it was really people who were, excited by new things. So tech people, but also, adrenaline junkies, people excited by trying new things. And so why did we get the traction? I'm not too sure why, actually. I guess, so we had baked in our engine for growth. Our assumption was that, so okay, let me get back there. The mechanics of making the platform and the business work was that our users would challenge their friends. Everything was around a challenge. So let's say, Priscilla, you would join the platform and you would be prompted to either challenge yourself to anything, like read 10 books by the end of the year, or, learn Chinese or whatever. And then we would ask you to challenge your friends. And so quickly it would come to your head that, okay, I have this friend of mine that wants to run a marathon. Okay, I'm going to challenge her that by the end of the year, she needs to be signed up for a marathon. Or I have these friends that needs to stop smoking. Okay, I'm going to challenge him to stop smoking. And so our assumption was that for every user that we would get at least 5-6 new users for free, because those users would challenge their friends. And that worked very well because it's easy to challenge friends. So we got that traction initially. What we had not anticipated was that it's very easy to challenge people. I mean, it's very easy to make yourself, to have ideas, basically. It's very easy to come up with all sorts of things of the next you, like who you want to be, who you want to become, the next version of, the better Priscilla version. But it's very hard to move from the current state to the desired state. I mean, this is the typical change journey. It's the typical behavioral change journey, which is, I'm here today. I want to get there. What do I need to do to get there? It's very easy for them to get ideas, vision, etc. Execution, implementation is very hard. So whilst we got a lot of people onto the platform, the conversion rate of, the transformation from being challenged, accepting the challenge, to actually doing the challenge and uploading the content that you said you would upload, there was a gap there. And that led us to the plateau that we eventually got.
When I was reading of this idea, as you mentioned it, I thought of all the industry of coaching and group coaching and all that. And I thought it's almost kind of fit exactly right inside what you were trying to do. It was almost like the missing link to crossing everyone over, but just absolutely fascinating. I have to speak to this because I know as entrepreneurs, you come up with your mission, you have an idea of what it is that you're going to do. You've bought into the impact that you're hoping to make. How do you get to the point, not only realizing you need to pivot, but actually pivoting not once, but 3 times?
Yeah, I guess by necessity, right? Up until the point where you are not funded, so you haven't taken any money from external sources, it's on you, right? It's fairly easy. You can argue with your partners and decide whether or not to do it, and it can be painful or not. I mean, you make it as painful as you want to make it. But the moment you have, people to whom you owe something, that are expecting results, that are looking for traction, pivoting, urgency comes way faster, because you cannot afford to let things, drag on and on. You have to ensure that, at the end, it's a game of time, right? The only thing you can manage is the time that you have before all the money that you got depleted. So it's really a question of how you maximize that money versus time. And so when we had tried all of what we thought we could try to make that initial idea of disrupting Facebook work, and it did not, we concluded that out of necessity, I guess, and we were coming from, as you said, the coaching business, which is why the idea resonates so well into HR and coaching and moving people from A to B. It was obvious to us that we had to take that same platform that we had built, because now we have something that we must leverage. It's not that we're going to start something from scratch. So what do we do with the thing that we've built? What is the shortcut? What can we do, and what sort of impact can we have in the field that we know? Because you can decide that, let's try this track or that track. But obviously, if you don't know anything about it, the time it would take for you to learn about that idea of yours, you may not be able to afford it. So for us, it was, we know HR, we know strategy implementation. We have this platform now, a mechanics of challenge. How about we go to HR, we go to large organizations, and we invite them to challenge this time their employees to do the things they are supposed to do and they are paid for. That was very easy because you don't necessarily have to accept the challenge. I mean, the challenge has been accepted and pushed onto you by your manager. So you feel that you have to do it, which remove the entire, oh, well, I'm not sure. Shall I not? This time you must.
Yeah, brilliant. It's interesting that you say in the book that you went from that position of not being able to figure out how to get to the next step to when you pivoted being one of the only startups that was actually making money.
Right.
And it brings me to, I don't know much about accelerators, but only, from what you hear, that is almost like it can end up being an environment, especially in the US, where it becomes professional fundraising without actually or a return to the people who are investing. So I thought I'd ask you, is this kind of the sense of what you saw while you were there?
Hey, small business family, quick pause here. If you've been listening and thinking, I need help getting clear on my message and how to actually market this amazing thing I've created, I've made something just for you. It's called the Clarity Intensive, and it's 2 focused sessions, one-on-one, where we untangle your ideas, map out your next best move, and build a foundation for real business momentum. If you're done thinking what's the right thing to do, and you're ready for a customized strategy that fits you, this is for you. You'll find the link in the show notes, or you can visit the website www.reinventingperspectives.com/shop, and you'll see our Clarity Intensive 1-to-1 marketing coaching. Let's get back to the show.
Normally, when you are in an incubator, you're really building your product. You're really figuring it out. What happened to us, I guess, because of the network and the experience that we had prior, and we were a bit above the average age, we had this half-baked product, but we could nonetheless directly bring in clients. And because we had worked before, we knew a thing or two about relationship building and client and signing contracts and a lot of those things. It was easier for us, I would say, to create real clients, which was a bit of a curse as well, because we ended up signing very large organizations, again, due to our experience and our network, very, very large companies, whom we did challenges for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. But then we set ourselves a bar that was so high that we built expectations for everyone else, right? For our investors, for our coaches in the incubator, that, okay, this is the level at which we deliver. And now anything lower than that would not be good enough. Right? So that is a tricky situation as well. I mean, now looking back, the typical startup definitely starts at the bottom. You develop your product, you understand who you are based on, small iterations, small proof of concepts, tiny clients. And as you gain confidence and as you gain understanding of how you can generate value, then it becomes easier to move up the value chain and charge and increase the pricing as you go up and as you fill up with people and competencies inside your own organization. So we took the thing from the other end, which I think in the end really helped us go down faster.
Even as I read the book, I feel like the speed at which you always have growth is just so rapid and so extreme. Mm-hmm. And then you're working all day, 20 hours a day. And at some point in the book, you have somebody who comes and wants to see where you're operating from. and is shocked to see how many people are operating this this company
Right.
that has been supporting, thousands and thousands of employees through transformation and change. How did you feel about looking back about the way in which you managed growth?
Yeah, I think we did well, because, in the end, if the idea is to be scalable, which it is, right? The idea is to scale through tech. And in that sense, to some extent, we were extremely scalable because we had managed to build a platform that was resilient, that was strong. We could have a lot of people onto it, even though, yes, I described, the ups and downs of making that happen. But we had that platform, and then we were very few people to manage it because, in fact, we didn't need any people. The tech was doing the thing. There's no need to overstaff just for the sake of, reassuring your buyers that you are a legitimate company. Right? I think it's an old school idea that, okay, how can we work with those guys? There are 5, 6 people. We need to match, work with someone of our size or slightly lower. It's an idea of the past. I think now it's way more accepted that, tech companies are driven. It's a small core, and because it's tech enabled, it's okay. It doesn't need to be a lot of people behind the platform. But perhaps 10 years ago was less of an obvious thing.
Since we're on this topic in terms of mindset for entrepreneurs, you write that, I quote, "I wondered if I was wired properly. In the space of a day, particularly as things got harder, my mind would vacillate between the absolute certainty that Challenger us would take the world by storm and a deep inner skepticism of our, or at least my, ability to convince even one more potential business partner to join us. I could swing from total euphoria to shocking lethargy and depression." I think that's the entrepreneurial journey in a nutshell.
Totally. In a nutshell, exactly. It's a rough ride. And that's really why I chose to write this book. You are in this space, probably have seen the same thing as I have and made the same sort of conclusion, is that all of the content we are being offered is success-based. All of what we consume all day is about those great companies, Tesla and Virgin Galactic and, the Kardashian and Elon Musk and all those extraordinary people and their ventures. And the reality, though, is that 90% of startups fail. And 90%, I'm really generous because it's closer to 95. When I say they fail, they don't pass the 10 years mark. And when they do, most of them are not profitable, it's just there. And so my conclusion is that if with so much content about success, like extraordinary success, we have a 95% failure rate, my argument is that maybe it's not so much success that we should be shown, but the actual journey of what it takes to make it, to actually run a startup. Because what happens is that, and I was in that case myself, it's very easy to quit. It's very easy to, to believe that that thing that you're experiencing, which is hard, you are the only one experiencing it because you haven't seen that content before. All of what you've seen is amazing, glossy magazines, fantastic billboards with successful smiling people, amazing books with, Oprah that made it. But these are just a tiny fraction of what's out there. The vast majority is not that. The vast majority is failure, or at least, if not failure, is struggle. And as we're not being shown that, we've got a totally false expectation of what should happen to us. And when that rough thing hits us, we feel totally incapable of tackling it. And it is what leads people to to stop dreaming. It is what lead people to say after a year or two, well, it might not have been for me. I might try myself to something else. So I thought that by putting out the real journey of it's hard every day. It's been hard for us for 7 years. It's every day, literally. You have something coming at you. And then if you are aware of that, then it's very easy to accept that it is a fact. It is hard. And now that I know it, I can prepare myself, or at least I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised when it comes to me. Whereas if you are in this, fantasy world of I'm going to be a Elon Musk because I'm working from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. after my 9 to 5 job, and I'm going to launch rocket to space, then you're going to hurt yourself. So my perspective is that let's bring something to the table here, something that is the real journey, because I haven't seen any book like this. So I took it on me to share my experience. And yes, although it is my experience as a baseline, in the narrative is my narrative, certainly an aggregate of all the things that I've been reading, I've been listening to, all the people that I've met. I mean, it's 15 years plus of experience in entrepreneurship.
Elon Musk, because there's a quote from him that I like. As an entrepreneur, we're always wrong. And our job is simply to try to be less wrong. Thank you for sharing your story. The book is amazing. And I love your message that is basically we must all fail our way to success. But this is just a part of the road to getting to somewhere, because, wow, what a start. Before I talked about your first startup, which was in Thailand, and then I got sidetracked, but I want to come back to that because you talk about how that ended. And you said that basically, I'll quote you on this. It says, for a while, business was booming, but after a mere 2 years in business, a large Thai advertising group entered our lane and crushed us overnight. So then my question to that is, how can startups avoid this, it seems almost unavoidable aspect where you gain enough traction to be crushed by the big guy?
Yeah. The reason I think we could not defend ourselves in that particular instance is that, in fact, we had nothing. We were just a middleman. We had no assets per se besides the process, the knowledge of the process that we had learned. But, it's not enough to sustain your positioning and to defend the value that you add, because in fact, it can be copied overnight. So there's nothing that you bring that is not replaceable. That's a great point in terms of course, it all depends on the kind of business you're after. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have a business that is not replicable, because clearly, you can, a bakery, you have many bakeries. It's not that you have just one bakery and it's the one bakery in town. You might, however, have a bakery that is so special that it is the one that you keep going to because they have managed to build, brand, and they do something that others don't. But it's certainly possible to have several bakeries in one town. So I guess the point I want to make is that what an entrepreneur should really do, especially these days where, if you are in tech at least, is to really find something that is hard to duplicate, that is hard to copy. I mean, ideally, you want to have patents and all of that, but that is a very specific and unique sphere. I mean, you have to have, research-based. It's very specific, very technical, so it's not for the majority of us. But at least if you can build something that is not easily replicable, you get yourself a higher chances to succeed and not being displaced. So to go back to the Thai case, which I made in the beginning of the book, it was one of my initial startup ideas, and it was a great learning experience for me, because that's really what I uncovered while doing this, is that we had a process, we had found a way to make money, but that was not enough to sustain us. Anyone could literally, with enough weight, come and crush us. And that's what happened when you have someone that has deeper pockets than you have. then that's it. You're done. That also taught me, back then it was very much a non-technical platform driven. It was very much about, selling, and the strength was in our capacity to sell. But a salesperson is, again, not irreplaceable. Very easy to challenge a team of salespeople. So you need to find a way to secure your unique selling, your USP, right? And the value that you bring. That would be the first element of the question. The second one would be, I guess it's okay. If you are an entrepreneur, and that's a discussion that perhaps a bigger discussion, nurture versus nature. If you do this once and you are depressed because it didn't work out, and then you can't think of doing it again, then probably it's not for you, and that's fine. Just do something else, if you can't live without thinking of bringing something new to the world every 2 months, then I would say that you are an entrepreneur and you will come up with your next thing. And I've been doing that forever, as long as I can remember, coming up with things and trying them out. And many of my ideas, I created them, I conceptualized them, I researched them. I do all the homework for free, and then nothing happens because eventually I make the decision that, no, someone will come and do something better, or something exists that, replaces what I could potentially do. So I'm not even going there. There has been a lot of work prior, just even coming to that conclusion. So I guess failing is good. And that's the next level of the next reading of the book, is that it's actually okay to fail. Number one, it's really okay. In fact, it's the only way to learn, right? Because you will not learn out of success. You will learn out of struggle. You will learn by being faced with complicated decisions to make. And when you fail as a venture, it might be, depressing at first, but then eventually you realize that, well, that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because now I'm way stronger and I can go into my next thing, if that's the next thing you want to build, with a much greater understanding of how things work. So, failure is not to be feared. And that's one of the key messages I want to bring these days, is that, go for it. And even if you fail, it's not about, I like this idea that it's never about the destination, right? It's never about the shiny object at the end, the medal, the podium, the trophies, because these are just artifacts of success. But the actual success is the one that you build as you build yourself towards that destination. It's really who you become as a person, and how strong you become, and how better equipped you become to move on to the next thing. If you look at it from a very long perspective, anything goes, really, as long as you develop yourself, and as long as you come stronger to your next iteration, like you as a person.
Well, and now I have to ask, what's next for you? What's next for Arnaud?
Yeah, I've got a few things lined up, actually. So right now I'm sales and business development for a startup. So I'm still in the startup world. This time not as a founder myself, but as an employee. So I work with drone data. So we collect data captured by drone globally. So it's a bit of a Uber for drone data, at least. So that's what I'm doing. And then obviously I'm trying to help entrepreneurs, understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, and hopefully, accelerate their journeys by providing coaching. There's the book, obviously. I'm a mentor in a startup school. So I'm actually educating, teaching, coaching young entrepreneurs to understand how this thing works. And then one of my passion is the organizational mindset, the startup mindset within large corporations. So that's still something I'm very passionate about, because the innovation does not only comes from, kids in garages. It actually also comes from large corporations and how they can themselves become more efficient, developing the capacity internally to have the mindset that is required to create the next product, the next service that would keep them going. So I'm involved in quite a few things, but I guess for now that would be it of what next for me. No second book for now. There is the one. The one is enough for now.
Thank you so much for that. Something I also really enjoyed while reading the book is the way you would draw from all the books you've read and all the entrepreneurs that you followed, which is very interesting to read. So then I have to ask, what book would you say has made the greatest impact on you as an entrepreneur from all the books that you've read?
That's a rough question because I read a lot.
I can tell you read a lot.
Right, yeah. I'm a big reader. But I'm a big fan of Gary Hamel. He's a professor in management. He just released a book, which I haven't read, but some of his initial work, notably when I can recall top of my head, is Leading the Revolution, which is really about becoming revolutionaries in a way. That you have to. So, okay, his work is mostly within the context of large organizations, but you can apply the thinking, across really small and tiny organizations, which is you really have to go against the status quo. I mean, there is only something that is worth pursuing is trying something that changes the way things are currently done. Otherwise, you're just a copycat, or you're just doing more of the same. And more of the same, sadly, won't give you much, because if you don't add so much more value than what's already out there, the likelihood of you being spotted or being worth looking at as a company is very tiny. I would encourage people to really think big and not be attached to the way things have always been done, because that is just an illusion. It's easy to think of a tiny layer of value add, but it's not enough to make you a sustainable company. You really have to go into something and bring so much value that you disrupt your field, or you come up with something that is so different. I mean, it may not have to be highly technical, can be a way of selling, can be a branding idea, but it needs to be so different that I like this idea of Seth Godin, which is, something remarkable is something worth making a remark about. So the idea is that create something remarkable, because unless you do so, no one will make a remark about you.
Really great. My last question is always, what has faith meant to you on your journey?
I've learned a lot, really, from that journey. And so the faith I had then was the faith of the work I would put in. I was convinced that, because it sounds logical, the more you put in, the greater the output, right? So if you put 10 hours worth of work, well, you should get more than if you put in 3 or 4, which sounds very rational and very logical. As it turns out, not necessarily. We've worked a lot. I mean, really a lot. 7 years, pretty much every day, weekend included, very late in the night. There is a point where you think you're productive, but in fact you're not. I mean, after 10 p.m., probably you're just wasting your time. So the relationship between, what you put in and what you get is not such. So during the journey, I had faith into myself, right? The input I would put in and what I would get out of it. What I've learned, though, coming out of it, is that, which connects back to what we've discussed, is that, eventually perhaps it's okay. And perhaps, so now I've become a bit spiritual, or I consider all things like up to the universe. So I've been reading a lot. I'm very interested in neuroscience. As you know, I'm very interested in quantum mechanics, consciousness, and all those topics that no one really has a clue about, whether you're a physicist or a neuroscientist. The question of consciousness is very interesting to me. And so my conclusion today is that perhaps what you're meant to be, you're actually on the path. So you don't have to believe that, you're not doing the right thing. Things happen perhaps for a reason. It sounds a bit like deterministic as an approach. Perhaps there is some you can affect, obviously, some that you can't. What is it that you can affect versus what is it that you can't? But to me, because we've worked so much and we've achieved so much, and in spite of that, we failed as a company. I mean, we didn't make zillion. We have to continue to work. I've come to the conclusion that, perhaps the best thing that never happened to you, the thing that you wanted, is perhaps the best thing that happened to you, because it sends you back onto your own trajectory, the one that you perhaps were meant to be on in the first place. So I would stress less about it connects also what I said initially, which is it's less about the outcome, less about the destination, and more about what and who do you become as the whole thing unfolds. So I've become a little bit more spiritual in my ways of looking at things after this experience.
That's amazing. Now to our audience, if you can please go to howhardcanitbe.thebook.com to learn more about Arnaud Wood and to get this book. Now, where are you most active on?
On LinkedIn, I'm the most active. I share a lot of content. On LinkedIn, I also have, you just mentioned the website from which one can get the book. I'm trying to build a community of passionate people to share that knowledge and provide tips. We're doing a thing for everyone that buys a book. I've created an additional, what I call the 7 traps on the road to startup success, which is really an extra layer on the book, like 7 really things that you assume but aren't necessarily true. So that we give away for everyone that is just sending your receipt to the website, and you get the ebook sent to you. So that's a good thing for your audience.
Thank you so much. And let me tell you the review that I left for your book. I said you were chasing a unicorn, but I feel that the unicorns were the team that you had, the team that you became, and not necessarily the company. It's a phenomenal book and a phenomenal contribution to entrepreneurs everywhere. So thank you so much, Arnaud, for your time. Thank you for the book, and thank you for your work.
It's a very nice conversation. So I'm happy, and I look forward to perhaps getting feedback from your listeners about what they've learned in the book.
For more information, freebies, and clips from various episodes, please follow us on Instagram at Reinventing Perspectives. Thank you so much for your time. We absolutely value your time, and even more, we value your feedback. Don't forget to leave us a review. Thank you so much, and see you again next week.